Welcome to Digital Freedom. I'm glad you stumbled upon this page because this video and this page might potentially change your life, and it might be the most important video that you've seen in a long, long while. Right? So, without blabbering much, let's move on. So, before we start this presentation, I'll give you a bit of a quick background context, right? And I think it will be relatable to like 99% of the people. There's a script that has been given to us by society, right? Which is be born, go to school, go get your bachelor's degree, and then go get a job. एंड पोस्ट दैट जॉब इफ़ यू आर अ बिट एम्बिशियस तुम बाहर पढ़ने चले जाओगे एंड अगर ज़्यादा एम्बिशियस हो हाँ तो तुम बाहर पढ़ने जाओगे थोड़ा कम हो तो इंडिया में ही पढ़ लोगे कोई दिक्कत नहीं है एंड आफ्टर दैट यू बेसिकली गेट मैरिड buy a car, maybe get have kids, buy a house, and then die, right? But the phase between when you are married and your kids have grown up and the time before you die and retire, there is some time, right? And that is the time when people have this midlife crisis and they start thinking यार मेरा passion क्या है मेरी hobby क्या है and that is the reality for 99% of the people. But what if I told you there's an alternate reality, a reality where you can pursue your passions if you have one, right? There's some problem you want to solve, you want to do the startup or just explore it, right? The second option is of course you explore your passion. You don't know your passion yet because अभी तक exploration का time ही नहीं मिला क्योंकि अभी तक तो सब script से पढ़ के बता रहे थे. But what if you could explore your passions? You could try 10 different things and figure out what works for you. Let's say ये passion वाली conversation भी आप side पे रख दो. What if you just wanted to travel? And I don't mean like 6 दिन की छुट्टी लेके भाग के गए और जल्दी से वापस आ गए. I mean slow travel. Spend months in a country, learning their culture, meeting people, and basically absorbing the place. Or what if you're more experience driven? What if you say, yeah, I want to go learn salsa, bachata, and I will do it in Mexico? Or you said, you know what, I want to take my bike and drive it along the Himalayas for 3 months. पूरा हिमालय अपनी हिमालयन पे निकाल दूंगा मैं. Right? What if you wanted to live this reality? Most people think it's impossible, and it's kind of for the very few privileged and extremely rich people that they can do all of this stuff. And the obstacles to that life, right, that I just mentioned is time and money. And I think there are three categories that most people will fall in. The worst category is you don't have time and you don't have money. And इसका example होता है when you are stuck at a job where you're not paid enough and you have to work long hours. तो ना तुम्हारे पास पैसा है ना टाइम है. तो ये पैशन एक्सप्लोरेशन हॉबी ट्रैवल ये सब तो फिर आप भूल ही जाओ. This happens in very low end jobs, right? The other category is people who have money but are time poor, right? And I know personally people who are like that, people who are financial analysts, they work for big banks, hedge funds and all, बहुत पैसा कमाते हैं, but they don't have time to do anything basically. And don't get me wrong, they spend it. They spend it on houses, they spend it on luxury, fancy vacations, but that's it. It is very short lived for them. And so they don't have the time to actually enjoy the money that they make. Then there's another other category of people, right, who have the time but don't have money, and this is mostly like early stage guys who have just gotten their job. So they have a lot of time, right, in maybe in college or just right out of college, but they don't have the money to do anything, right? They have all these dreams and aspirations, and they have the time, but they don't have the money to execute on it. And don't let anyone tell you that money is useless. Nahi bhai, money will solve a lot of your life problems. But and let's say you have this, right? But there's a category of people who have money and time, and this is what the whole point of the presentation is. How do you reach a stage where you have both of them in a certain amount which allows you to live the life that I was talking about, right? So why are we here? Basically the concept of digital freedom is, can you live a life where you control your time, your location and your activity before you're too old to actually enjoy them, right? 80 की उम्र में तुम ट्रैवल नहीं करने जा सकते यार. माय एग्जांपल आई थिंक इज वेरी गुड वन इज my grandparents, right? Few years ago they sold their ancestral house and they got a huge windfall gain, like they made a lot of money, and they never really traveled a lot, even though they tell me उनको बहुत शौक था travel करने का. But they were trying to save money, put kids in college and all, right? So that was their reality. But the point I'm trying to make is, there's no point on having a lot of money and time when you're too old. At that time money becomes useless to you. And so, why should you listen to me, right? And here's a brief background. If you found me through Instagram, there's a lot of assumptions that are being made. Ki, oh, maybe I was born in the US and my parents were super rich or something, or maybe somehow I like किसी बंदे ने तो ये भी बोला था कि यार he I think I got some windfall gain by lottery or something. Weird stuff, right? But I'll tell you what the reality is. I come from a very middle class background. I did all my schooling from APS. My dad was in the army. हर 2 साल बाद हमने अपनी location change करी. I was never like a grade A student. मतलब अलग ही तोड़ रहा था ऐसा कभी नहीं था. I went to Symbiosis College. I did my electronics from there. And right out of college, I got a job of a whopping 20,000 rupees a month at Tata Motors. And yeah, it was a good company. It was good times. But 20,000 even back then when I got the job was so bad that कि जो हमारे security भैया थे, जो in charge थे, his salary was more than us, right? So and उन्होंने तो 4 साल की डिग्री भी नहीं ली थी. And after that, I went to pursue my higher education in US, which sounds very fancy and good. Ki, oh, bahar padhne chale gaya. But I took a huge loan for it, like $60,000 in debt. So even though you have this US education, but you're actually pretty broke because you're $60,000 in debt, which is a huge financial decision for someone जो middle class background से आ रहा है. But things changed for me, right? Things changed in a way that after college I got a job in startups, and so I worked for a few years in startups, especially in tech in the Bay Area. My last gig was at Facebook, and yeah, I had a car. I was pretty much settled. But then I left all of that, and the reason I left are long story. But I have my visa, and also it wasn't because of any visa issues per se. And I moved to Dubai to work as a freelance consultant, and I did that for a while, and then I got tired of it. I said, "नहीं यार, अब तो अपना startup करेंगे." So I went ahead, pitched my ideas at incubation labs and startup pitches, and basically got funded. And I worked on my startup idea, which was phenomenal, right? Building a team from scratch, building a product, going to clients, pitching your product. It was a world of an experience. And then I exited that. And the company still exists in Dubai. They're doing very well for themselves. It's still being run by my ex co founders. So, all in all, that was good. And now I currently run a blockchain finance consulting firm, which is a small team based out of Dubai, and we do all basically blockchain finance for other companies which are based out of US and Europe. So that's me. The reason I'm telling you all of this is not to brag, oh, look at my life trajectory and all. The reason I tell you all of this is because I've had experience. I come from a very regular schooling background, very average college background. But after that, I have done a 9 to 5 job in India. I've done a 9 to 5 job in the US. I worked as a freelancer. I've started my own startup and exited it. And I'm running an agency, right? And now I make content on social media even, right? So I've experienced, I think, all these verticals that people experience, either one, most of them, or yeah, that's it, most people just experience one of it. And I've had this experience. The second thing I want to tell you about is the wealth aspect of it. My wealth wasn't some windfall gain ki I got lucky in crypto, or I got a startup very early on and I made some crazy money, or मैंने खुद का startup जब बना के भेजा I made like millions and millions of dollars. For me, no, it was a very gradual process of at each level I made more money, I invested, and that wealth grew. And so even investing, I got into a lot of exposure from startup equity to basically raising funds and taking my exit out of it, and then of course investing in real estate in Dubai, investing in the Indian markets, investing in the US markets, doing private investing. I funded a few startups, so I have had that experience, and I've been living the life of digital freedom. So, but when I ask people, right, how do you get it? Most people, the answer is pretty simple: be rich, right? If you're filthy rich or you're from a filthy rich family, you don't need to worry about this. अगर तुम अंबानी के बेटे हो, I'm pretty sure ये बेटी हो, you're not watching this presentation. They don't care, bro. Like वो तो अपने रिहाना को नचा रहे हैं यार. They don't care about this digital freedom concept and all. The other idea is that most people think you have to do a startup or a business which is very well funded and high revenue, or the other thing is get a high paying remote job, um, and that will make you a lot of money. Or some people say, no, you got to actively trade, and if you become a trader you will have time and location independence and all of that. And the answer is that none of this is true actually, Because what social media has taught people is that either it is zero, or that your 9 to 5 job and you're poor and it sucks, और इट इज़ 100 कि भाई तुमने मतलब एकदम ही ओयो वाले स्टार्टअप की बंदे की तरह या ज़ोमैटो वाले स्टार्टअप के बंदे की तरह एकदम वेल फंडेड स्टार्टअप खोला और फिर तुमने तो छप्पड़ फाड़ दिए. They only focus on these two extreme ends of the spectrum. They don't they don't talk about what's in the middle, right? And I think a lot of people will benefit if they just understood what all is available in the middle. But that's not popular, right? And the truth is that this is no मेरा कोई original concept नहीं है, right? I am no genius who came up with this huge concept of digital freedom. It's actually a pretty old concept, and people have been doing it for a while. It's just that there are ages and cycles to this thing. And the truth is that anything that you're considering, whether it's a job, whether it is freelancing, whether it is an agency model, whether it's a startup, or even active investing, all of them will work individually or in combination of each other. That's the reality of it. But coming back to how old this concept is, well, the first guy who actually thought about it, actually, there are people even before MJ DeMarco who did it, but this guy wrote a book called Millionaire Fastlane, which kind of explains that how you can start a business, automate yourself away, and get a lot of freedom. Then, but MJ DeMarco is the OG guy, right? And then came this guy called Tim Ferriss after him, MJ DeMarco. He was more new age, graduated from Harvard, and he basically did drop shipping before drop shipping was a thing. And he basically lived this life. Like, this guy became famous for winning a salsa competition in Mexico, I believe. I forget which country, Argentina or something. And people asked him, dude, तू तो investment banking में था, Harvard का पढ़ा हुआ, how did you get this time and money and how did you leave all of this? And he basically did it through drop shipping before drop shipping was a thing, right? And then there are these new age guys like Danko, who is basically an online writer. He wrote without making any videos, without getting on Instagram and all of that stuff. He just wrote, and by writing he made $1 million a year and got his freedom, right? And he never worked a regular job before that. He was a creative guy before that, actually, and his art wasn't selling at all. And then he transitioned into writing, and then he basically also perpetuated how you can live this life of digital freedom. And so I called them digital freedom fighters, right? Because these guys have done it before, so it's not a new concept. It's just that with each cycle, the way it is done or can be achieved changes. And that is what we are talking about. So, after first living this life myself for the last few years and studying all my friends in the circle, so I've traveled a lot and I've met certain people who are living a similar lifestyle, right? It is not something super unique. I've realized that there are four pillars of skill and execution that you need to do. So step one is get that skill and then execute on those skills. And without that, whichever path you are choosing, right? Whether it is doing it through the job way, whether it's doing through as a freelancer way, agency way, startup way, you cannot skip this. You cannot skip these four major pillars that will get you there. And this is very well researched, not just by me, by a lot of people. And the first one is a growth and essentialist mindset. Growth and essentialist mindset is basically saying, are you impact driven rather than effort? देखो effort तो गधा भी देता है. Doesn't mean he will get anywhere with it, right? The idea of the essentialist is, if you know where you want to go, can you cut out all the noise? Can you learn the ability to say no to things which don't add to that path? Can you carve your own most efficient path of from where you are to where you want to reach? And then growth is because if you're not growing through the journey, right? Let's say you somehow magically reach this end destination of digital freedom. There is no way that you would have reached there by improving yourself as a person by at least 100x, right? And so, essentialist mindset will help you find the path, and the growth mindset will help you become the character who can achieve this. The next one is networking. People don't know what actually networking is. It is not going to an event and basically saying hello to people. That is not networking, that is just small talk. And I'll tell you why networking is so important. Every opportunity that I ever got, from my first job to my first customer as a freelancer to raising funds to getting customers for my agency, happened through networking. And this networking wasn't sending like 5,000 cold emails or like doing cold calls and all. And I'm sure they work, by the way. I've done it. I know they work to a certain extent. But true essence of networking is something that is not taught properly anywhere. Like it is a skill that you can develop and master. And I've seen not master networkers in place who generate value just by connecting people, and within a call they can have funds ready to do this, they can get problem solved, hire the right resources, all by just call, because they learned the art of networking very well. And the third thing is leadership. I think one of the biggest myths on social media is this lone wolf philosophy. खुद को एक कमरे में बंद कर दो और काम करते रहो and somehow you'll reach there. And I think that is absolute bullshit. Yeah, life is a team sport. And the only way you're going to win this game is by having a team around you. At the very least, you would need a CA, a lawyer, and teammates. And this skill of leadership is not something that comes easy. Very few people know what good leadership looks like because they've never had good leaders. And to become a good leader, you need to be under a good leader first, so that you know what behavior and mental models and patterns you need to mimic. एंड एक एक्सपेरिमेंट था लीडरशिप पे जो मेरे को बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग लगता है. आई डोंट नो कौन से कॉलेज में हुआ था. उन्होंने बेसिकली, आई थिंक स्टैनफोर्ड था, उन्होंने कुछ बच्चों को ना फील्ड में खुला छोड़ दिया ग्रुप्स में. एंड उन्होंने बोला अभी यू हैव टू सर्वाइव फॉर द नाइट. एंड व्हाट स्टार्टेड हैपनिंग वाज certain people started following one person, right, and certain people started following another person. And so what the reason I tell you the story is that leadership is a skill. It can be developed, and leaders are self-selected, not appointed. Like in true sense, there are certain people that other people will gravitate towards, and those are self-selected leaders, and that is the truest form of leadership. You see these qualities sometimes people who are in the army or in these positions where it is a matter of survive life and death, and some certain leaders come out on top, right? That true leadership is also available in corporate, but it is extremely rare. And the last one I think is the ability to communicate. And the best example I have of this is, um, i- when I was pitching my startup idea, right? And I felt कि यार मेरे पास तो प्रोटोटाइप भी नहीं था, मैं एक प्रेजेंटेशन लेके घूमता था. And there were people who were, I know, I'm not even guessing, I know that their product was better than what I was pitching. It was technically more sound, they had done much better analysis than I had. And yeah, it was just a much better tech than I was holding. But they never got funded. I i had more offers than them. And the reason, when I look back at it, was yes, networking helped me get there and I had good references to be in those rooms, is because I was able to communicate my idea in a much more precise, concise way that was able to win over the people in that room. And the people who make like have that kind of money, they're not stupid. They made their money by running companies. And but they also know who a good communicator is, who will push through an idea. And I think the biggest differentiator was the communication skill. It wasn't my idea itself, it wasn't the deck that I had presented. It was, I think, purely based on my ability to communicate and articulate my thoughts really well. And I think other founders there, hats off to them, super technical people, I'm still in touch with them. And but I think the reason they never got funded, or some of them got funded way later on, is just because they did not communicate their idea very well. And communication is a skill, and not all communication is the same. Professional communication, friend communication, family communication, romantic communication, they're all very, very different, and they're all very deep topics. But most people never learn how to communicate properly because it is not like an art that is taught really well. Because India mein, we focus so much on hard skill ki bhai coding सीख लो, development सीख लो, ये सीख लो, वो सीख लो. We never care about how you communicate it, right? Which I think is a master skill that needs to be focused on, and Americans are very good at this. But anyways, the point is that if you have these four skills developed, you can choose any goddamn path, right? And any path you choose will work if you know, but there's no way it will work without these four skills. You need to be very, very proficient in these four skills to to basically make whatever path you work. People think there's a specific path you need to take. It is rarely about the path. It is your execution of whatever the path you choose. And so these are the four skills, right? And so there's this community that we're trying to build here called School of Jack, right? And if you, after hearing all of this and maybe watching the content on Instagram, if you think I'll give you this roadmap, do step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 10, and you'll reach this point of digital freedom, yeah, फिर तो भेड़ चाल वाला है, that you expect someone to hand you a roadmap. And the reason it will never work, like even if someone gave you this exact roadmap, it will never work for you, is because each person is different, right? Each person has their own qualities. फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर कोई बंदा सोशल मीडिया पे अपना मुंह चला के कैन अर्न मनी, राइट, then that is the best thing for him. If he tried to do it at a job, maybe he would never succeed. But if you can identify your own strengths and weaknesses and double down on them and cover your weaknesses by working on them, you will win, right? And so nobody else can give you a roadmap. And I think सबसे बड़ा mismatch ये आता है जब लोग ये कोर्स वोर्स बेचने चले जाते हैं, वो बोलते हैं यार ये कर लो बस आप, and somehow you'll reach that end dream because they're trying to sell your dream, which I think is very mistaken. I think people understand themselves better than anyone else. I will know myself more than anyone else will know me. And so I know exactly what I can learn, what I can improve on, and what are my existing strengths, develop a roadmap accordingly, and then execute on it. But nobody else can come and tell me, yeah, Anmol, you should now become a professional athlete or a rapper because that is the fastest way to that digital freedom life. It just won't work. And so, what is my job, right? I've realized my job is that people who want to go to digital freedom, I'll provide them a map, I'll guide them, I, I will help teach them skills or hire experts to teach them skills that are needed against those four pillars that I mentioned. And third is you have to build a community because the power of communities is, they say, right, you're the average of five people around you. But if the average of your five people are Fudu people, you're not going to get anywhere, right? You want to be around people who are on the same path as you. If you are trying to grow your social media, then better as well be with people who are trying to grow their social media. Don't spend your time around people who are working in tech then, right? Or if you're trying to build a startup, spend your time around people who are in that ecosystem, who are maybe ahead of you, right? So communities are powerful. That is extremely true. If you want to be fit, right, just surround yourself by fitter people, and that will have cascading effects. तुम बाहर खाने खाने जाओगे वो दारू वारू नहीं पियेंगे. They will make healthy choices. You, by factor of being in the group, will also make healthy choices. It's very simple. And so, what is the job of someone who joins this kind of community? Their job is to learn the skills. If you aren't at a place where you can look at that skill map and say, "Yeah, I am a master of these four skills." भाई अगर तुम पहले ही master होते, so what are you waiting on? Go execute, right? Maybe just join the community, but you don't need to learn anything if you're already a master of all those four skills, which I highly doubt because I've rarely ever met someone who has mastered these four skills, and most people who I know have mastered those skills have are already there, are already either pursuing an idea or have gained that path of digital freedom. The second is once you have those four skills done, right, you know that at a theoretical level मेरे को सब समझ में आ गया, मैंने थोड़ा implement भी कर लिया है, either in your job or freelancing or whatever. Now I have a map. I have a map which I'll follow, which will get me to a digital freedom point. And this third part is any community, right, cannot be driven by one person. A community is basically a collection of people who are moving towards a certain goal. And if you are seriously committed to this path and the kind of people who are along with you, you will help grow that community. You will owe a certain sense of loyalty to that community by bringing something. You cannot be a taker in a community. Nobody respects someone जो हमेशा लेता रहे जो जिनको बोलते हो ना लिचड़ लोग. That is very low quality of people. Like if someone is truly committed to the path and they care about the community and they want to contribute to the community, these guys will always grow. And that is the kind of people we want, who are on that growth trajectory and want to bring other like-minded people to that same growth trajectory as them. So now, by the way, the presentation has ended here. If you want to click away, that's fine. At this point, this is basically my thoughts, right, which you didn't ask for, because take it with a pinch of salt, right? This is just my experience so far. When you first reach the point of digital freedom, right, you've achieved it. अब क्या करोगे? Most people say they will travel. And I've traveled. I've traveled for the last 3 years. I've been to 18 countries. I've spent many months in each country. And what I learned after that is कि यार travel without intent gets boring. Like कितनी बारी तुम म्यूजियम्स देख लोगे, कितनी बार तुम कल्चरल साइट्स पे चले जाओगे, हर झरना एक एक के बाद एक सेम लगने लग जाता है. It all becomes the same and it gets boring. Then people say, oh, you'll spend luxury. Yeah, I have rented yachts in Miami, I've rented yachts in Dubai, I've rented expensive cars with friends, family, and I've driven them. And don't get me wrong, they're very fun, you'll enjoy them, but it also gets boring really fast. And what I learned is this book or Japanese philosophy called Ikigai, right? And this is the map of Ikigai that you see in the presentation, where basically the idea is you can go read it up on your own. You don't need to read the whole book, but the philosophy is this: what are you passionate about, what are you good at, what does the world need from you, what the world is ready to pay you and the world will benefit from. And when you find that combination of all those things, that is your Ikigai. And everyone can have a different Ikigai. There's no one size fits all. And so that is the phase I am in right now. Right, I experienced all of it, I made my own money, and I explored a bunch of things, and I came to this conclusion that, yeah, I love teaching and I love helping building communities and growing people to reach this path of digital freedom. And I'm experimenting with it. Will I be doing this 5 years later down the line? I don't know, but as of now I think this is my Ikigai, and I'm exploring it through social media content and stuff, and conducting these workshops and the School of Jack. The reason I emphasize so much on community is because now this is some second order thinking, right? And I don't expect a lot of people to understand it if you haven't deeply philosophically thought about certain problems. The first one is humans need tribes to survive. अगर आप prehistoric days में देखोगे, जब हम cavemen थे, उगा बुगा कर रहे थे, the only way to survive was tribe. And if you were kicked out of a tribe, you would die within a few weeks or days, right? And the Western model, and I've lived in the US for 5, 6 years. Some of my closest friends are Americans. The Western model of hyper individualism is failing. If you look at the West, right, people are uh, committing suicides. They are in severe depression due to loneliness. There is obesity, and a lot of people try to blame a bunch of things. But I think it boils down to culture. अगर मैं इंडिया को देखता हूँ, right, where people are more open to spending time with each other, more open to having open conversations. You just, even if you don't have the money, even if you don't have all the luxuries in the world, you still enjoy your life more if you're surrounded by the right people. And the next point is knowledge is free. Yaar. YouTube made knowledge free. ChatGPT will now make even execution of that knowledge free. But experience is very expensive, because asking the right questions is very important. And a lot of times we don't know the questions that we need to ask, right? And sometimes you don't know what you don't know. It's as simple as that. And in this world of like online stuff, right, where जॉब भी ऑनलाइन हो जाती है, एंटरटेनमेंट भी ऑनलाइन हो जाता है, अगर सब कुछ ही ऑनलाइन हो जाता है, दैट सेंस ऑफ कम्युनिटी इज बीइंग लॉस्ट. And I do believe that you need to be in person, shake hands with people, look people in the eye and have conversations and spend time with each other. That is the most fulfilling human experience that you'll ever have. And so how do I want to build this community forward, right? Or how do I want the core members of the community to build this movement forward? I think there are two parts. The first part is online learning sessions. See, if you want to do it at scale, you have to be online, and that is exactly what we are. The skill development part, or the core skill development part, I want it to be accessible to everyone. It will be online. But a huge part of the community will be offline events, right? And they will be more like retreats, 3 day workshops where you have industry experts or certain expert in that field come give lectures. You have fun, get involved in activities, you meet like-minded people who are pursuing the same goals as you. And that average of 5 people philosophy, if your current circle doesn't have the people who have the same mindset as you, this is where you find it. इट इज़ वेरी वेरी रेयर कि तुम अपने आसपास देखो और तुम्हें अपने जैसे 5 लोग मिल जाए जो तुम्हारी तरह एक ग्रोथ ट्रैजेक्टरी पे, हु वांट टू बी हेल्दी, हु वांट टू रीच दिस पॉइंट ऑफ डिजिटल फ्रीडम वेयर दे हैव इनफ मनी एंड टाइम टू परस्यू एनी XYZ things, right? But in a closed community like this, right, where the whole aim is this, most people that you are going to meet in those offline events are going to be on the same path as you. And that is how you form professional communications, professional bonds, personal bonds, and you grow. And that is my philosophy of building this community and starting this whole social media thing. And that is it. I hope you found your 30 minutes of your time useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Go sign up for the waitlist below. We are doing a beta version right now, but as soon as general general access opens, we'll definitely send you a message, send you an email, and we'll stay in touch. Thank you.